So we get to finally talk about the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 and see how this specific phone holds up in 2023. Now this wasn't a crazy, ginormous change of a phone. I was about to say iPhone. This was a very good upgrade coming from the Z Flip 2. But I do think that as of this day and age, the Z Flip 4 has depreciated a bit in the used market, and it's kind of become a little bit of a better deal. But I've always felt a way about these flipping and folding phones, and I feel like Samsung is so close to perfecting them, but I do think with the way they are doing it, there's just really not a big reason at all to buy one of these types of phones, unless you really like that flipping mechanism. So to start off, if you want to buy some phones I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now to lay the framework real quick, the Z Flips, this one, the Z Flip 3, came out in 2021. So that was the same year that the Galaxy S21 actually ended up coming out. So we are going to heavily be comparing this phone against the Galaxy S21 because the S21 is actually an older phone, technically speaking, than the Z Flip 3. Now the Z Flip 3, when it's folded, does have a cover display. It's 1.9 inches, it's a Super AMOLED display, and it looks pretty good. I think it's a really good looking panel, and that is something that's really awesome here. But when you flip it open, that's where the things start kind of making a little bit more sense. So we have a pretty big 6.7 inch foldable dynamic AMOLED display. This was actually a pretty big jump coming from at least the original Flip that I remember. You were getting a 120 Hz panel here. It was 1080p, and it looked like a pretty good screen. Like I had a really good time with this panel. It was a hole punch display. There's not a lot of bezel on it, and although it doesn't look as good as the S21's display, this is a different type of panel. So we can't just say, oh, the S21's so much better. It is, but they're different types of panels. You're getting a flipping phone, so it's going to be a little bit of a different mechanism that's there, and they require a different type of display. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that this is the main reason why you're going to buy this phone. If you're buying this phone because of the features or because of everything, if you don't love that mechanism that flips, this is not a good deal at all. I would not recommend buying this phone whatsoever. But if you do like that, then by all means go for it. This is going to be a good phone. Now you do have a USB-C port at the bottom. You do not have any microSD card slots or anything like that, so keep that in mind. You do have, on the back, depending on how you're looking at it when it's unfolded, you have that dual camera setup on the back, which I think is really nice. I think it's a good camera, but we're going to talk about in a second, how I feel about it truly. You are getting this like frosted kind of glass back, which is really nice. It makes this phone feel so much more premium, and that's something I love about these types of devices. You are getting a very solid, feeling phone, and the fact that it flips is such a cool little thing. Now, when compared to a standard like bar type of phone that does not fold or flip, this is an acquired taste. If you like that flipping mechanism, then by all means go for it. But me personally, I do like not having to flip and unfold my phone, and it gives me a little bit of an anxiety feeling when I go ahead and have to flip it and unflip it because I feel like I'm going to crack it or I break it or something like that. With this type of phone, when it's folded, then it's fine. But if it's unfolded and unflipped, it just kind of bothers me a little bit. And that's the reason why I never really keep too many flipping phones around, because I just feel like I'm always going to break them or something. Although when it's closed, that screen is not shown. So some people will think, oh, well, if you drop it, it's going to be fine. But I've always felt a way about flipping it and unfolding it. I don't know why. Now, the camera side of things is the reason why I feel like Samsung could be doing a better job on their flips and their folds. They keep giving these phones that are more expensive than their Galaxy S baseline phones, they keep giving these cameras just such a weird camera experience. So this thing could easily have a triple camera setup, but has a 12 megapixel wide and 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and you can do 4K at 60 on the back. You have a 10 megapixel front facing camera, a wide angle lens, and you can do 4K at 30 on the back. Now on paper that might seem fine, but again, compared to the Galaxy S21, which had already depreciated in price probably half by the time this phone came out, but also this one was costing more, I think, than the S21 at the time. The problem I have with this type of device is that Samsung puts a watered down camera on these phones when they could easily be putting a better camera setup on it. I feel like with something like the Galaxy Z Flip 3, all Samsung has to do is put the same cameras they have on their baseline S tier phones to these ones. That's all they have to do. But they don't do it because they have to, make sure that this phone isn't better than that phone in any way. That way people pick up that phone over to this one. And I feel like Samsung by this point has the technology to make these cameras the same sizes, same megapixels, same, like the S21 can film at 4K at 60 on the front and 8K on the back. The Z Flip 3 cannot do that. So, and it's missing a lens too. So I feel like this camera quality is still good, but it's not just the flip, it's the fold as well. And I feel like Samsung, like I said before, can be doing a better job there. So hopefully they improve. It's not the end of the world, but it's just one of those things that kind of thrown me off for so long, and I'm hoping Samsung can improve it at some point. Now, moving on to the software and longevity, this phone still has quite a bit of a future ahead of it. So it has started off with Android 11, currently it's on Android 13, and I do think it's at a pretty good spot there. I think with something like Android 13, it's awesome. This thing's probably going to be getting One UI 6 as well. Hopefully that's kind of the goal. If it doesn't, that's going to be sad, but I think it's probably going to end up getting it, which is going to be a really big asset for this type of device. And with a phone like the Z Flip 3, it's still going to be in good hands. There's not really going to be a lot to complain about there either. So that's kind of another advantage going for a phone like the Z Flip 3. So even though I've kind of complained about this phone a lot, you are getting some improvements there, which is kind of nice. Now, in performance side of things, you are getting that Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset inside with 8GB of RAM. Now, I will say this is a good area for this phone because it does basically have the same amount of RAM and same performance inside as the Galaxy S21. So it's the same thing as basically the phone of that year, the major chipset you can get. It would have been nice had it had like the 888 Plus chipset, but it's totally okay. Now, I do think with the Z Flip 3, it is in a pretty good spot because not only is this phone kind of avoided the 888, like the HN1 transition, where basically a lot of people were having thermal throttling issues, the phone getting too hot. So it did kind of avoid that, which was kind of nice. However, with a phone like the Z Flip 3, it is, definitely with the HN2, it's not as fast, but it's still a very fast performing phone. I would still say that 8GB of RAM is more than enough for a lot of people. The 888 chipset is still very, very fast. And with that 120Hz panel, it makes things perform and feel so much faster, which is so beautiful. So you could easily get a phone like the Z Flip 3 and still be in a very good spot, which is something that I love about this phone. So when it comes down to that, beautiful stuff. I love getting a phone like this because it performs very well in that standpoint. And that's just one of those things to keep in mind here. So from that perspective, the Z Flip 3 gets a thumbs up from me. And honestly, I hear a lot of people still using the 888 chipset because it just is still so fast and so performance heavy. So keep that in the back of your head. In terms of battery life, you are getting a 3300 mAh battery, which is pretty decent for this type of size. Again, if it was bigger, then that would have been awesome. But I still think that's a very good size battery. And you have to remember, Samsung has to split this battery in half to make it fold. So I think that's totally fine. You're also getting wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well, which is pretty cool. So I think that kind of stuff holds up very, very well for a device like this as well. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll tell you is I definitely do think a device like the Z Flip 3 is in good hands. I think it's a good phone, but I just think compared to other phones that have came out, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to buy a device like this. You are much better off buying a Galaxy S21, buying a Galaxy S22, that's probably the same price as this thing now. Buying a Pixel 6 or a Pixel 6 Pro, like one of those types of devices, these flipping phones, they just kind of have some watered down areas where they could be doing better. And that's just kind of how I've always felt about this type of device. So take it as you will, but that's kind of how this phone kind of holds up in 2023. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.